Hey everyone, it's Bailey Elizabeth here. Today I'm really excited to be bringing you the second episode of my monthly interview series, A Conversation With, where I speak with artists and organizations of all kinds who have found themselves really living out this intersection of art and life. This month I had the absolute privilege to speak with a director and photographer who I have looked up to for quite some time now, who I have a huge amount of respect for, whose work I just love and admire, and who recently I've gotten to know a little bit as a person. Born in New York City and now living in LA, he has been touring and photographing artists and bands since he was 16. Now 32, that means he's been doing this for half his life. Throughout his career, he has toured with countless bands, including Imagine Dragons, the All-American Rejects, Need to Breathe, Halsey, American Authors, and Lovely the Band. In addition, his photos have appeared in numerous major media publications and on the cover of dozens of singles and albums, including ones for Eminem and Beyonce, Bruce Springsteen, 5 Seconds of Summer, Philip Phillips, and the Somerset. As a director, he has done music videos for Billy Rafool, Matt Mason, Ricky himself, and Noah Kahan, to name a few. Having grown up in New Jersey, he is an avid Springsteen fan and is currently a big fan of decaf coffee. Fresh off the road with Dermot Kennedy, I'm excited to introduce international touring music photographer Jesse DeFlorio. Thank you again for doing this. It's really awesome. I'm really excited. I think we're going to have a cool little conversation here. So the first question I'm going to ask you is, when you hear this saying, the intersection of art and life, what do you think of and what does that mean to you?
Oh, that's interesting. I think I try to look at that not just as like a work-life balance sort of issue, but instead as a way that, like, for me, I call it all work. I call it my work. It's up to someone else to determine what is and isn't art. But for me, it's like my work is the avenue that my life is lived through. It's, especially as a photographer, it's like I truly like capture things that happen to me and the situations I'm in. And then I live through that. I get to look back at it and see what I worked on. And it's like, I would be taking the photos anyway as a way to appreciate my life and see where it's taken me and see where my travels have taken me and who I've lived my life with. And I'm lucky enough to get paid to do it.
Yeah. Yeah, that I agree with that. Just having that, as someone who's so visual, having that visual kind of record of everything you've been through, just be able to always go back and look at it and just kind of have those moments where you relive the past and whatever. Just kind of think about that. I think from there, I'm going to go into a little bit about you as an artist.
Great.
And how you got started. So you grew up in a creative household, right?
Yeah, both my parents are artists. They're graphic designers by trade.
Okay.
And now they're both art teachers.
All right. And was music always a big part of your home life too?
Music was like we're from New Jersey, so it's not so much music as it is just Bruce Springsteen all the time, which I'm fully on board with, as everyone knows. I'm still a card carrying New Jersey driver's license holder. That's a little fact. So I've got that with me. But yeah, it was mostly like growing up in a creative household helped by giving me access to things at an earlier age than I would have had it otherwise. Like Photoshop was something that I got to start playing around with when I was like 8 years old, and After Effects and those sorts of things. So that was like the big advantage of being in the creative household. It wasn't so much like they pushed me to be an artist, because they didn't really. They know how hard it is to be an artist. But I had access to these tools that I would normally have to wait till college to take like a Photoshop 101 class, and I'm taking it in 8th grade. Yeah. So just having those different mediums to be able to explore creativity through. Like when I was young, I actually did a lot of animation in After Effects. And I enjoyed it and I loved it, but that's not something I do at all in my professional career now. So it's interesting to see like which of those that I did young I've latched onto.
Yeah. I had a similar experience. I grew up with my mom working in the entertainment industry, both theater and music, and I was a professional child actor when I was a kid. But then as I got older, I was like, I'm not really into being on stage anymore, or whatever. Like, I want to be behind the camera. And, you know, I transitioned, but it was always, you know, there, and the opportunities were always there. But it is interesting how you know, do one thing when you're young and, you know, stay within the arts, but transition into a different type of art.
Yeah, and I've always wondered like what those early explorations I had in, you know, animation or design or whatnot, like what avenues in my brain those have helped open, or like what skill sets of those I'm using subconsciously nowadays. It's always interesting for me to go back and think on that.
Yeah, that goes a little bit into what my next question was going to be. And so I know you have a very distinctive style of photography, and it's what originally drew me to your work, because it's very similar to my style. A lot of black and white, gritty, you know, photos aren't always technically perfect. You know, it might be grainy, not in focus all the way, but it's always a really amazing moment. And a lot of times I notice that you capture more subtle moments as opposed to what, you know, the shot a lot of people might be going for, that everybody's getting, that it's like, oh, that's the killer shot. But what really shows the musicians is those little quieter moments. And I've seen through your work, you've done a lot of that too, which is also something I see in my work. And I'm wondering what led you to develop the style that you have that's so old school and, you know, film inspired. And has it been hard to embrace that and stay true to your style in a world where there's so much digital stuff going on, where cameras are made special for low lighting, and everybody wants the sharpest picture in the world? Like, that's something I'd be interested to hear about.
Well, I appreciate you saying that I have a definitive style, because that's one of those things. Again, it's almost like when I call it work and you call it art, it's like I'm always longing to have a definitive style, because to me, I like, oh, this is just a hodgepodge of everything. But I think the best way for me to approach that is basically saying, like, you know, yes, I love those moments that aren't the main thing. I don't love the cleanest shot. In my head, like, sometimes I want to get the cleanest shot. It just, I can't. It's not how it comes out of my cameras. The same thing, like the same cameras, the same film, same bodies in someone else's hands, the photograph's going to look different than I take it. So I just lean into how it looks when I take it.
Yeah.
In terms of like the quieter moments, or the, you know, not the shot everyone's getting, I feel like when I'm hired by the bands, it's like I'm not being hired to just be the person that's in the front row photographing it as if they worked for the local like outlet or whatever the media outlet is. I'm there to peel back the curtain a little bit, but I also want the viewer to know that they're seeing a moment that they're not really supposed to be seeing.
Yeah.
So that's why I like black and white pretty heavily, because I feel like it shows the moment, but it also shows you it's not real, even though it's a real moment. It's like my version of it, and it's me allowing that version to be sent out into the world, because the only real version of it is what I've lived with those artists.
Right. That makes sense.
Yeah.
And I've always been one for the quieter moments as well. And similar with the, you know, I might not always get the cleanest shot, but I'm always like, you know, I want to tell the story of the artist's truth. Like, I really want to bring them to life, as opposed to just saying, oh, look, this is a live concert. Like, I want to peel back that curtain, like you said. And
there's a big, I think there's a big, like, not a misunderstanding, but a lack of understanding that these musicians also have 24 hours in their day.
Yeah.
And the show, it could just at sometimes be 30 minutes of that day.
Absolutely.
So the artist is out there sharing their work with everyone, but there's still 23 other hours of the day.
Yeah.
And I like to show those hours in a way that helps reveal the psyche of the artist.
Yes.
Because I think that can help viewers of the work understand where that artist is coming from even more. And it gives them a new lens to then go back into the music.
Yeah.
And look at it from that way.
Yeah. I could almost say the exact same thing about myself. You know, it's just, it gives the viewer a whole different perspective in a different way to see a person and see that there's so much more than what they do on stage.
Mm-hmm.
So, and along with that, I wonder.
By the way, I bought the photograph that you have behind you.
Yes.
Of me. This is the same day I bought this little coffee.
That's awesome. I remember. I remember buying cups like that in the 90s all the time.
Yeah, there's a Hertz donut in Tulsa, Oklahoma. That's where that photo that's on your wall comes from.
That's funny. You'll always think of that photo when you drink out of that cup.
Yeah, absolutely.
To talk a little bit about, you know, how art and life intersect with each other and influence each other. I know, in what kind of ways would you say that your work has impacted your life the most? You know, I know you're friends with a lot of the people who you've worked with. You know, maybe it's bringing those people into your life through your work or something else. But what would you say is probably the most impactful thing your art has done for you personally?
It's what you said. It's like it's formed the circles of friendship around me. Like there are a fair amount of musicians that I've met to work with them and then now are dear friends of mine.
Yeah.
And without my work, it's less likely that those people would have been brought into my life. There's bands that like I grew up at the same time in the same cities and we didn't know each other, and then we worked together years later, and then it's like, oh, I can't believe that we haven't met back then. I'm so happy we met now. And now those are people I call every day. I was thinking about something funny. I'm gonna grab my phone and look at this for you. I was like having a particularly funny realization this morning, but just today, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 different lead singers have texted me today. And I just thought it was funny because they were all kind of in the same like couple hours. And I was just like, man, this is funny that this is exactly the type of person I attract into my life. It's like I latch on to a lead singer and then we're all friends.
Well, I know you must be super easy to get along with because you seem to like be a people magnet. Like everyone you work with, you're like, not everyone, but you know, Brian Dales, Billy Raful, Matt Mason. I mean, there's so many of them, Zach and American Authors that you've toured with and then wound up being friends with. So
yeah, I've talked to 3 of those people today.
Well, there you go. So I think that
I've been on the phone with 2 of them today.
Yeah, I think that says a lot about not just your talent as an artist, but you as a person, how you approach it, you know, that kind of thing.
I appreciate that. Yeah. And then like one of the big things is like to remember that like I'm there to tell their story. So it benefits both of us if we get along.
Yeah. They have to trust you.
Exactly. So it's really like, that's really one of the most hireable qualities in someone is this a person I want to be around?
Yeah.
And I feel very lucky that my general nature over the last however long I've been doing this has led me to be like, you know, this is the wrong word for it, but accepted by these people is very, great. It's a wonderful feeling.
Yeah, I'd imagine. Recently, a few months back, you just posted about celebrating 1 year sober. And I know I have dealt with mental health struggles. I have battled anorexia more than half my life. And so one of the things for me, I've always loved music, not just doing photography, but as like a healing tool. And I know you've posted before about like Rustin Kelly's music being really important to you and influential in that. And so I'm just wondering, you know, how music or even your photography, how that helped you through your, you know, sobriety and getting sober and you know, getting your mental health to a more, you know, not stable, but, you know, to be a happier and more level-headed person, if you could say that, you know.
It's very interesting that you asked that question because there's an important distinction to be made. And that's, yes, I'm somewhere in like the 18, 19 months sober. but that pretty much coincides with the pandemic.
Yeah.
So when I got sober, I then went in about a month later. I went into the studio with a band called Crowded House, the '80s band. Their hits were in the '80s. They're wonderful band on BMG Records, and they brought me into the studio with them for 3 months, like January, February, March, and it got cut off by the pandemic. So it was really nice to be able to work with like a really structured schedule, because it was like, okay, we're in the studio Monday through Friday at these hours. So I just had a normal gig for those months where it was okay, I don't remember exactly what we did. It was like 2 or 3 days a week. Like I'd show up like Tuesday at noon, Wednesday at noon, Thursday at noon. And it was just a sense of like a real professional gig.
Yeah.
You show up, you do your job, everyone does their own thing, you go home at the end of the day. And it was really helpful for me to not immediately be thrown back into just like being on the road and touring.
Yeah.
So I'm very fortunate for the timing of all those decisions I made. And then unfortunately the pandemic happened, but it really helped me because then I got to sit at home and work on old footage for a little bit. And then we started filming stuff again, but it wasn't really like right back into the grind and flying through everything.
You were talking about, the structure helped you being home to, do that kind of thing. In terms of as like a person who listens to and appreciates music, in addition to working in music, did your love for music in any way influence or impact your sobriety, like in terms of just kind of a healing tool?
Yeah, so I don't think I've shared this before publicly, but like I once like wrote down a list in my phone of like successful musicians whose music and career paths I liked that were all sober, and I kind of kept this running list of it for a little bit. And like once I saw some of the names on that, I was like, if they can do this, I can do this.
Yeah.
So absolutely, that music was a huge part in that. The musicians were a big part in that. And then the songs themselves have been a big help afterwards.
Yeah, that makes sense. I had a very similar situation with my recovery, and just music was the only thing that kept me going, and like listening to my favorite artists and just having them in my ears, on my headphones. And I know how influential in life music can really be. I credit music with saving my life. So I totally get that with having that there. I know a lot of attention has been put recently on how toxic the touring culture is. I know Rolling Stone wrote an article about it, and about how if use this as a reboot to try and make it make touring a little bit healthier. And Gibson, their charity, has started a program to put Narcan and educate people on Narcan into venues and on tours and stuff. And just a lot of different organizations have been talking about using this time off to try and reboot and make touring, when it starts up again, healthier and not as toxic. And from growing up in the industry, I know I have a lot of friends who had issues with touring and just getting into that lifestyle that wasn't healthy for them. And I'm wondering, what type of thing have you done in the past, or would you do to kind of take care of your mental health and keep yourself in check on the road?
Yeah, I've been really lucky. Like I love everyone that I've been on the road with and been on a bus with, and I've had overwhelmingly positive experiences.
Okay.
Like I've had so few bad experiences or bad days that it's not even worth putting out there, because it's brought so much to me. But one of the things that I try to remember is that like my Monday's still a Monday, my Tuesday's still a Tuesday. You can get caught up in the fact that you're in a different city and everything's in a different place. You don't know where the gym is or the grocery store or the coffee shop or all that. But I try to just take an hour or two to myself every day and walk somewhere and do my thing. And if people want to come with me on any given day, that's great. But just getting out of the touring world and remembering that I'm a person, I'm in a city, and I'm here doing a job.
Yeah.
a couple hours of that help me be better at my job.
Yeah, that makes sense. Just keeping your level head and not.
Yeah, and just some semblance of routine
Yeah.
that isn't directly connected to the load in time, the sound check time, this or that.
Yeah.
I kind of like to look at my day when possible as like, sound checks when my job really starts is how I like to think of it. So if sound checks like 3 o'clock, I'm up at 9 a.m. Like I'm going to use those hours for myself.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because we're going to work from 3 to midnight, 1, 2, whatever it is. So those are the hours that I'm there working. And then there's also hours where I'm Jesse.
Yeah. Yeah. You definitely have to hold on to your normalcy in some way. I recently was watching, I don't know if you've heard of it, there's this show that Dave Grohl and his mom did called From Cradle to Stage.
I've heard about it because Dan Reynolds is on it, and I've been meaning to watch it. I might watch it after this. I'm in the middle of the McCartney thing on Hulu right now.
Okay. Yeah. So I just binged From Cradle to Stage like last week. And in the episode with Pharrell, Dave Grohl said this really fascinating quote, and I wrote it down because I thought it was so cool. And he was talking about him and Pharrell, and he said, both of us have restless souls that just need to create. And I really can relate to that. And I know a lot of the people I know that work in the business can relate to that. What do you think of that statement? And do you think to be in this business and be touring and, to live that life, do you kind of need to be a restless soul?
Yeah, so I actually, me and one of my friends, there's a Zach Brown band song that's like, I got a gypsy soul to blame and I was born for leaving. We always like reference that one.
Yeah,
I listen to a lot. One of the bands I work with, we listen to a lot of Zach Brown bands.
I love Zach Brown.
Yeah, I would love to. I still haven't I have a matching Zach Brown band tattoo with Zach from American Authors.
That's awesome.
So yes, I think I don't want to glamorize the restless soul thing.
Right.
Because I struggle in my early 20s when I was touring. I started touring. I did my first tour when I was 16. I'm 30 now, so it's 16 years of learning through touring.
Yeah.
I definitely had just that restless soul, say yes to anything, any new city, any new place, new opportunity. But now I think there's less for me to run away from.
Mm-hmm.
And there's more things at home that I love.
Yeah.
So I definitely have a restless spirit and I feed into that sometimes, but I can't let that dictate all of my decision making.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's a fine line there. And it is one of the inherent struggles of being a creative is the want for something more.
Yeah. But
sometimes you just need to take a step back and be thankful for the road you've already traveled.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. I agree with that. And I think you're right. People could glamorize, restless soul kind of thing, running away from whatever, you're running from and that kind of thing. But I just thought that was such a cool quote. And it made me think of myself and so many friends that I have that tour and whatever now or are in the business. And it really made me think so I just wanted to ask that. That was something interesting that I had. Interesting that you mentioned the Zach Brown tattoo, because I was going to ask you, tattoos are a whole art form of their own. And a lot of times, most people, I think, get a lot of their tattoos have meaning to them. They mean something. They're symbolism. They're to remind them of things or a symbolism of something they love. And you have a whole bunch of tattoos.
Yeah, I do. I'm guilty of that.
And I know when we met at the Imagine Dragons show, you showed me the Need to Breathe one.
Yeah, it's huge. It's hard to hide. It's my whole forearm.
Yeah. And I'm wondering.
I hid it from them.
I saw you post that on somewhere or something.
I made it like 7 weeks into like an 8-week tour before they caught on.
That is so funny.
We had a good laugh about it.
Yeah. I'm just wondering.
We had a good laugh about it, and then we all just opened a beer and sat in the dressing room and joked around about it.
That's awesome. I'm wondering, how have you, like, do your tattoos document your life in any way, or what type of things have you, yeah, I guess has it been like a documentation of life, or what way does that, kind of connect with you emotionally?
Yeah, so like I have lots of tattoos that are just like songs I love or bands I love, like something from one of those. That's like kind of what I got earlier from like I think got my first tattoo around 19, and probably like 19 to 25ish. It was like mostly that stuff, and then just American traditional tattoos that I love. As I got older, like getting tattooed is exhausting at some point when you have as many tattoos as I do. And so from about 25, 26 on, a lot of it is just a reminder of the place I got it and the people I was with at the time.
Yeah.
So sometimes like when I'm with bands, we'll tell a tattooer that we love, we'll book them for the whole day, and I'll go, a band member or two will go, some crew people will also go, and we'll just all get tattooed. I remember those moments when I see those tattoos.
Yeah.
There's even a tattooer in Sweden I love, named Pastilium, and at least 3 bands I work for have been tattooed by him now. Like one of them introduced them to me, and then when I go to Europe with other bands, I take them there. And it's just kind of fun to see like that happen and that spread, and see his work on friends of mine.
That is really cool. Yeah, like introducing, artist to another artist. That is really cool. Can you like think of any moment in your life in terms of either when you fell in love with music or when you knew you wanted to do photography professionally or music photography? Is there like a moment you can peg down to that, or an artist that, influenced that? Or I know for me, I remember exactly what made me fall in love with music and rock and roll. I was 4 or 5 years old listening to Tom Petty, Don't Come Around Here No More was what, grabbed me and made me fall in love with music. So I'm just wondering, was there anything in particular that you can remember, a song, an artist, a moment for either photography or music?
Yeah, I can kind of answer for both because I remember, and they're all like around a similar time. So like growing up, music was in the house. My mom's a big Springsteen and Clash fan. My dad loves like Blondie and the Rolling Stones. But I never really latched onto music. I was more into sports and a big pro wrestling fan. So it was like I watched sports and pro wrestling, and that's like what I watched as a kid. I wasn't really into film or movies or TV all that much. And then in 6th grade, I heard an Alkaline Trio song for the first time, and I was like, oh, this is my band. Like, this is the gateway to everything. So musically, like, that started being the gateway to everything. Back then, that was, I was probably actually younger than 16. I was in 6th grade, however old I am in 6th grade.
So like 13, maybe 12?
Yeah. Sure. So basically back then what I would do is like and a lot of people talk about this, but like you buy the CD, you open it up, you look in the liner notes, you see either where they recorded it, and then you go find other bands that worked with that producer, that studio, or you look at the thank yous and you see what bands they thanked. And, like Alkaline Trio thanked The Cure in the record, so I got a Cure CD, and like they thanked they sung about the Misfits, so I got a Misfits CD, and like that started opening up that world. And then I was taking photos at concerts that I was going to for fun, and I liked it. But then I shot like a really small local show in New Jersey for a band called The Loved Ones, who are their punk band. They were on Fat Wreck and Epitaph and all that. And I sent them the photos, and I would never do that nowadays. Just like email the band directly. Yeah. It's not even as easy as it was back then. Like, email them directly.
Yeah.
And I emailed them, and they're like, hey, we normally don't like photos of us. We love these photos. You're really good at what you do. Like, you should pursue this. And I was like, oh, okay. And now it's what I'm doing many years later. And I got to do a film with them earlier this year.
Oh, is that the one that you put out earlier?
Yeah, that's what we shot. We shot it 5 years ago. And then during the pandemic, it was the 15th anniversary of their debut record. And we're like, seems like the perfect time to chop this all up and get this out there.
Yeah. That takes me to another thing I was going to ask. You do both photography and you direct music videos, and how did you get in? Did you always do both? Like when you first started photo, did you start doing video at the same time? Or, you know, how did you get introduced into that? And which, do you like one of them more than the other? Or do you feel, or is there any way that you feel one of them maybe draws more emotion than the other in terms of portraying emotion through the photos and videos?
I'll start backwards on this one. I feel at my best when my plate is kind of like, I like when 1 month I do a bunch of videos, and then kind of the next month I have a lot of still sessions. That always feels like a nice cycle for me to kind of just go through different periods where it's like, you know, 60% of my time spent on video, then it's 60% on stills. That feels really good to me. I like something about the permanence of music videos, in the sense that it takes more work and I put it out there, but when it comes out, I get more of a response. I get to hear what people think of the work. I get to grow from that.
Yeah.
Friends that I trust tell me, like, they're honest with me. They'll tell me, like, this is one, if they say this is one of your best videos, I believe it. If I don't hear much, then I know that there's something I could have improved on, and I ask the people I trust what that is, and then we do that next time. To go back to how it started, I just started in stills. I didn't have any plans on being a director. But then when I got like a Canon 5D Mark II, it had good video on it. It was like a revolution that now this wonderful video quality was in a DSLR consumer level camera, basically. And there was a local band that I worked with in New Jersey, and they just were like, "You're doing our video." I was like, "I don't know anything about video." What I mean, they're like, "You're doing it. It's you. You're doing it. We're doing it in 2 days. Whatever." I did it. It's a terrible video. It's on the internet. I won't show you where it is. I watch it every couple of years with some friends, and we have a good laugh about it. But the big moment when like it clicked for me that I could like direct and make a living was 2014, when we did a video for Young Rising Suns, are some of my oldest friends. Then they were unsigned. We did a music video for like $1,000, which at the time I thought I was like rich that I could do a video and $1,000, pay the editor $300, make $700. I was like, yes, can't believe this is happening to me.
And look at you now.
Yeah, but no, I still want $1,000. If anyone has $1,000, I'll take it. Like, we put it out, and it hit like the YouTube algorithm, and it got like hundreds of thousands of views real fast.
Was it the High music video?
High, yeah, the original High video, the black and white High video, which is somewhere, I don't know if it's on the internet anymore, but it's somewhere. And that basically got them signed to Interscope. They have an Interscope hoodie on now. I live in this in my house. And that's when I realized, I was like, oh, wow, I can do both these things.
Yeah.
And that's when I started taking it more seriously and actually learning how to be a director.
Yeah.
Because there were many years where I got credit for being a director, but I wasn't a director. It's a really complicated and convoluted title. It encapsulates a lot of things.
Right.
So yeah, the active growth of becoming a director started then, which is about 7 years ago now.
Yeah. I know that the last one you just did, the Matt Mason, Nelsonwood Road.
Yeah, Nelsonwood Lane. Yeah, that's a great one.
Nelsonwood Lane. That video is really.
Matt wrote.
That song is incredible. He is amazing. I like saw him at the Need to Breathe acoustic tour, and I was just blown away. But that video is super cool.
Thank you. That's how I met Matt too.
Yeah, I was guessing that was probably how, because he was on that tour.
Yeah, but I didn't get to spend much time with him, and so it was like really nice to then get to tour with him and get to know him. And now, like, I photographed his wedding last year.
Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah.
So like stuff like that's really special to me. When Matt sent me that song, that was one of the moments where I was like, I don't care what the label calls me and said, however much money they have is fine. We're doing this.
Yeah.
Like I wasn't going to lose out the opportunity to do that video over money.
Yeah. Well, there are some things that you just know are special. Like you hear a song, or you know that that's special, and you want to be a part of bringing that to life. And so I that makes sense. And I'm wondering, you said that the constant growth of being a director, like continuing to grow as a director. As both a director and photographer, not how important, but do you like work on improving? And I mean, not that you like need to improve, that's not what I'm saying, but
no, I do need to improve. There's so much I don't know.
Oh, so me too. I always am like, oh my God, that person knows way more than me. But
yeah,
then
the old adage holds true. Like if you're the smartest person in the room, you're in the wrong room.
Yeah. But I'm wondering is that something that you work toward, like constantly growing, learning more, investing in yourself growing as an artist, using your art to grow as a person, that kind of thing?
Absolutely. Like I think I look back on every project when it's done, and I'm proud of them most of the time. But what's most important is I think what did this teach me? What did I learn from this project, and how can I do it better next time?
Yeah.
Because, sometimes you fall into the same pitfalls. You're forgetting this one thing every time, and you're like, why did I not hire this person? I would love to have this person with me. Or, it's like, I should have put more focus on this aspect of the production. So I write those things down. Like I look at every production and I make notes of it. So when I go into the next one, I remember what I did on the last one.
Yeah.
I have a section in my phone it's called like Jesse's notes, work notes to Jesse.
Yeah.
It's just me writing down little things that I learned from each production, so that, before I go into a big still shoot or a music video, I can look back at it and go, oh yeah, every time I do a video, I come out of it feeling this way. So let's just nip that in the bud now.
Yeah. That's interesting. And I like that. And this is a question that I totally hadn't thought of, but just came to my mind when you said that, because that's really, keeping that running list is a way to, just make sure, like you said, don't make the same things over and over, and you continue to grow. And I remember when I met you at the Imagine Dragons show, you were talking about how you usually have an in-ear in so that you are aware of kind of what's going on stage, what artist, which band member to maybe not go near at the time if something's going on, that with their sound or their whatnot. Talk to me a little bit about how that came about, because I think that's really fascinating, just wanting to have that constant awareness of everything, like the whole production, the whole big picture, like everything, and using it as a way to, give the artist their space, or, let them deal, like if, the show's going well and their bass is feedbacking, or, they can't hear themselves in their ears, whatever, let them do their thing and not be in their face. So how did that come about?
That comes from 5 Second of Summer rehearsals with Ashton, making sure I always had a pack on me so I could hear everything. We also, like, it was kind of two things. I would take a pack and I would split it and sense the feed into the camera so I could track what they're tracking into the footage, but also into my ears. And then when I started being fortunate enough to do like arena level touring, I always asked for a pack. And some of it's for safety reasons. I want to know when the pyro cues are. Yeah, I know it's the same every night, but hearing it in my ears reminds me and make sure that I'm safe. And then, yeah, like you said, I just want to know, like, if something's going wrong with our production.
Yeah.
Because when I'm in an arena, I'm not always right in front of the stage.
Right.
If we're playing for 2 hours, I might be putting a card into a computer, or I might be walking the hallways to get to the next shot. So I use that as a way to know what the production is doing, because my job is to not get in the way of that.
Yeah. Yeah.
So if I need more, that gives me more information.
Yeah.
Not be in the way.
Yeah. I mean, you gotta get the shots, but you kind of have to hide at the same time,
Yeah.
Be quiet, don't get in the way, and you're there to document, not, be on.
Yeah. If I'm the star of the show, I'm doing something wrong.
Exactly. Yeah.